Hello everybody, welcome to Phil's wonderful keys tutorial videos. Joe Beckman sent me a question about what to do with playing along to tracks, which I thought was a great question, and so rather than just sending her a video, I thought I'd make one for everyone. So she said, oh, maybe Glorious Day, we could have a little look at that. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. Now, I tried to jot down a list of things that you should think about in terms of designing your parts for any song, whether it's tracks or not. I actually think the tracks doesn't make too much difference, because even if your parts are on tracks, you still want to double it up. So the four things are, number one, if there's any key riffs, and by the way, Sam Taylor's making a lovely little cameo thing in the background of this video. So number one is riffs. If there are any key riffs, there he is, he loves it. You want to nail those. Number two, the next kind of priority is just some block chords to kind of just enrich the sound, kind of mid-range block chords. Number three is doubling up any kind of guitar riffs that might need a bit of strengthening, or even a big vocal moment. And finally, number four is adding in some little sparkles and some little extra bits. Okay, but that's probably the lowest in the priority. So for Glorious Day, you have access to the tracks that we use. I've just put that in the group description, so you can actually go in and check what the piano parts are doing, or what the synth parts are doing. The way I've ordered it is that in each of our tracks that we use on a Sunday, there's if you go into the kind of folder of that track, there's a track called synths, and that's anything keyboardy. And there's also sometimes a track that's called lead piano, and that will be a specific lead piano part that we can often mute, directly mute on a Sunday. But usually any piano parts are just kind of in a nice melting pot of the synth stuff. It's all in one. So you can hear, it's useful to go and listen to that and listen to any piano parts or any parts that you might want to be replicating. So for Glorious Day, I've done this. So let's kick off with this. So Glorious Day, I went and listened to the piano parts, and there's not really much in there that's specific to piano. It's a big guitar song, this really, and there's that big riff in the chorus that goes dun 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 dun, which is a guitar part. So just working through those kind of priority lists. Number one, are there any big piano riffs that we need to cover? There is one thing in the track that's fairly key, which is in verse 1. The second half of verse 1, there's just a big octave piano that goes, it's in D, so it just goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So for context, it was my tune when I met you. Like that, lovely. Usually we would say, don't play so super low down on the keys, because you're kind of robbing the zone for the bass player. However, if it's a part like that, sometimes that is a kind of particular tool of a low down octave thing. Like that, definitely use that if that's the part that's required. So that was the only thing I thought I needed to nail. Oh, there was another bit in the verse, which goes like this. It was a kind of delayed part. So again, you might want to delve into some of the delay features on the Nord, but I'm gonna not do that. I'm imagining that either I don't have a keyboard that can do that, or I haven't got time to figure all that out. So it's a kind of dotted delay part. I'm going to play this badly, but it sounds a little bit like this. So it's kind of complicated and quite quick. So I'm going to try and play that. I would probably say simplify it, so choose an exact pattern and try and nail it and really focus on the timing. And then also I'm going to just drop the level of the piano for that bit, so that I can play a little bit more boldly, but it's not coming out as loudly. In another video, I'll try and go into some of the settings on the Nord that make this process a bit quicker. There's actually a button you can press, and you could just shift to a different patch quickly that's just quieter. But I'm going to do it manually just on the volume button for now. So it will sound like this. And as you can see, I'm using both hands because it's too complicated for me to do with two hands. So I'm just gonna try and do that with both hands and not do any of the other chordal stuff. So that's verse 1. Then the next thing on my list, if you remember, so riffs first, then second is just like block chords. So what I'm going to do that for most of the song. So for the verses, when I'm not doing that riff, I think this is second verse probably, I'm just going to do like some block chords. Stuff like this. Maybe not using the really low notes. Stuff like that. And in the chorus, I could do the same thing. It was my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness. That kind of thing. And if you notice, what I'm not doing is pokey chords that are up a bit higher, like this. I could play it like this. This is how not to do it. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. So these are kind of like triads that are a bit higher up, and I think they poke through. It's nicer to use some voicing, some maybe suspended second notes that just sound a bit crunchier. You called my, I ran out of that grave. What I'm also going to do in that chorus is introduce a bit of rhythm to it, so it's not just one chord. So I'm going to do a little bit of a dotted rhythm, but make it really clear. So 1, 2, 1, 2. You called my name. There's a bit of a pause. I ran. Now the dotted. Out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name. And up to the 6. So that's the kind of backing, that's like the second thing on my list, like some rich chords that, as a keys player, you're wanting to add in some of the kind of like mid frequency stuff. So often a guitar, especially if they're riffing or up the neck, will be doing some of the higher frequency stuff, as will the cymbals, obviously. But we're kind of like, sometimes the kind of like bit of the glue that's in the mid range of the frequencies, just holding everything together a bit. Great. So there's that. Now, next on my list, number 3, was any riffs that need backing up. So there's the guitar riff that goes, it's something like, yes, my piano playing exposed there. I'm going to try now and do what I do on a Sunday, which is kind of back that up, but I'm not going to try and do that as that riff, because firstly, I don't back myself to nail that really rigid timing, and I just think it will sound weak. So I'm going to simplify the riff. I'm going to just pick out 3 of the notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just making sure my rhythm's really tight, and I'm going to use a technique of doing octaves, which I use all the time. I really recommend. It's like really helpful for just letting stuff stand out and sound a bit more purposeful. So I'm going to do this, and that will fit in nicely with the piano. So with the guitar. So it will go like this. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. The darkness. Back to the chords, and now the riff again. This is the intro, because the riff carries on. Now your mercy away, my soul. So we're into verse 2 now, and I've simplified the pattern, so it's probably a bit more just static. Cool. So you'll notice in that chorus, when it goes to the 6th, the guitar riff change. Instead of the guitar riff does something like this. just on that, like when it goes to the 6th chord. So again, I changed my riff there as well. So I went to this little pattern. Okay, and then the final one was adding some little sparkles. So that might take the place of like a few little just octaves as you like. So in this chorus, maybe if I was trying to do that, I would do maybe something like this. You called my name and I ran out of that grave. Darkness into your glorious day. That kind of thing, maybe again with some octaves. Also that little thing in the verse, that little twinkle, was a great example of this kind of like repeating pattern. So we started the video with this. I'm trying to remember what it was. That's it. So without the sustain pedal. And do you remember this is the one I was going to turn down in volume and put the sustain pedal on? It sounds a bit like this. Now I'd say that's a bit quick for usual use. Maybe something like, if I was making it up, I'd do something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or something a bit more dotted, like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. You get the idea. So like introducing little patterns like that are kind of maybe slightly more background but add lovely texture. In the context of this song, I'm not going to do any of that fourth category of adding in extra twinkles because I've got plenty to do. I've got my riffs, I've got my block chords, and I've got my backing up the guitar riffs. So I'm not going to add in any sparkles except for the one that's on the track already. So I'll start a new video and try and play through this song as I would do it, and I'll put some tracks on in the background as well, just to play along to.